Instagram. That's me. All right, everybody, welcome. We are live here. It looks like we're having a little issue going live on Instagram. So seems to happen every once in a while. So we'll have to rebroadcast this on Instagram. Everybody, thank you for joining us. If you are new to this whole program, let me just tell you who I am and what we're doing here, and then introduce you to my guest here. My name is Ian Gray. I own Cycle Ranch Motocross Park here in Floresville, Texas, just outside of San Antonio. We are a facility that has 13 different tracks. We do training on site. We have races. We have open practice every single day. In fact, right now, you're probably going to hear some bikes behind me because we have night practice on Thursdays. And I'm here with Coach Robb, Robb Beams. You might know him from Complete Racing Solutions or Moto E, or as the man that brought Dungey from amateur to professional level. I've known Rob for over a decade, and he is the creme de la creme of trainers out there. And he really works holistically with performance athletes. So not just motocross. Motocross is one of the key components, but he actually is in many other sports, triathlete himself, race motocross. And this is the fourth show. This is the fourth and final show that we committed to here. So excited to see what we got to talk about today. If any of you have any questions, drop them into the comments, and we would be more than happy to address anything specific that you want to go into. And we do have a plan for the show, so we'll be bouncing back and forth. Stay on with us the whole entire time because we will get to your questions just as quickly as we can. So thank you so much, Rob. It looks like the Instagram is just turning on right now as well. So for those of you joining on Instagram, you missed the intro, but you've been watching. Instagram's been probably the most active platform. Rob, thank you for coming. I feel like it's been forever since we've been on a call, but it's only been like 2 weeks. How are you?
I'm doing great, man. Thanks for the intro. I wish I could take credit for Dungey as an amateur. I actually got in when he transitioned from Suzuki to KTM, so it was a very exciting stage. But yeah, thanks for the intro, and it's a pleasure to be here. And most importantly, I want to thank the community. We've gotten some incredible feedback. I love the way the questions really started coming in last time, and I hope people are comfortable enough to do that again on this episode together. So, and I'm going to say thank you. You've got Thursday night practice going on. 7 days a week practice, 13 tracks, and you're taking time out to do this. So thank you for taking time out of your day to make this available to the community. So props.
Yeah, actually, you have no idea how bad I want to be riding right. Well, you probably know exactly how bad I want to be riding. Tracks have been really good. I've raced the last 2 weekends I hadn't ridden for 3 months, aside from like an XR 150 to the beach with my wife and my son on it, my 4-year-old son. And in Costa Rica, you can do those things, put your kid on a bike and ride on the public roads and just go down to the beach and go do a little surfing or walking on the beach or tide pools, and total different life. And came back to Texas here, and it's been like full bore. And something happened, and I wanted to ask you about this. Why is it that when I haven't ridden for 3 months, not only do I feel faster, like significantly faster, but I noticed, and this is probably a hot topic for a lot of people, you know, with age and crashes and injuries, like we get these, voices in the head, right? And I remember Chad Reed, when he was talking about retiring, he said, and I think Kevin Windham said it too, like you start getting them and they get louder as you get older. And that's kind of when you know you got to get off the bike. And for some reason, after this time away, coming back on, like they all went away. Like all went away. And like I haven't been this present or feeling this good. I'm not in shape for moto shape, but something clicked mentally here. And do you hear that happen to people a lot? Like where they get those, those doubts, or some people call them demons or voices, but then they can go away too, like out of nowhere.
Yeah, absolutely. There's three things in specific that we could address. First and foremost, when you go to Costa Rica, there's just an incredible environment for rejuvenation. The food is good. You wake up with the sun, you go to bed with the sun. It literally is an environment that allows the body to fully rest. And I think that's the key word. You come back and you're rested, and you're no different than your 4-year-old. When your 4-year-old is, void of food and has had an interrupted sleep pattern, how resilient is he to anything? And he's having demons, but he's just being a 4-year-old who's tired, cranky, and that's just the byproduct of what we get. So the situation that you had going to Costa Rica just literally recharges your batteries, which is great. Those demons that we have a tendency to have come from chronic being tired, overstressed, and we tend to, especially as men, we just sweep it under the bus, suck it up, buttercup, let's push through. And unfortunately, we will do it until we can't. The second thing to keep in mind is I hate to use this word, but when somebody gets injured, you ever notice when you have one of those forced down periods, you come back and you feel better than ever? It just goes to show you how you're overtraining. And then the third one is I don't think people put enough merit into the idea, and especially in today's society where everybody's a winner, everybody gets this trophy, blah, blah, blah kind of garbage. I think what ends up happening is we don't put enough merit into the reward system. So, for example, one of the things I'm very, very adamant about with all of my clients is answering the question, why do you do what you do? In the sports psychology world, we refer to this as volition. Why do you get out of bed and do what you do every day? Why do you put yourself through the sweat equity of cross training and riding and traveling and cleaning your bike and fixing the bike, all the stuff that we go through? What's the underlying fire in the belly? So those would be the big three things to think about. Are you well rested? Are you coming back hungry? The idea that you've rejuvenated yourself physically and mentally. And now all of a sudden you've got yourself, for you, the motorcycle is the reward. Like when you go to Costa Rica, your surfing is your reward. And think about it. This, for someone like yourself, think how the ball bounces on the opposite side of the ocean. For you, when you're surfing, you're thinking about being at the cycle ranch and building that business and doing what's right for the customers. And then when you come back, what is it that you're doing? You're applying everything that you're able to learn or recharge your batteries in Costa Rica. Then when you're here, what are you looking forward to? Your reward to go back to Costa Rica to recharge your batteries. So you're a perfect example of the value of a reward system. And it came back in tenfold for you because you're like, gosh, I'm actually enjoying going fast. And you kind of a couch to Freestone, pretty doggone showing if you really think about it, you know?
Yeah, I still can't believe I did that because I mean, rest is one of the things that you mentioned is a key component. And while I was away, it was windy. I didn't get to surf nearly.
Mm.
I got to surf like 4 or 5 times,
Oh,
and
wow.
before it was like 4 or 5 times in a week. Sometimes it was 3 times in a day,
Yeah.
and so that kind of got put on the back burner. But I spent a lot of time working on the back end of Cycle Ranch, all the website stuff, order processing, our operations internally, making sure we have standard operating procedures, and just doing things you would do in corporate America that a lot of times I think are overlooked on most motocross tracks. Like some of the elite
Mhm.
ones, they probably have it all buttoned up. A lot of the really big ones, they have been doing this for a long, long time. Um, and it's kind of like a fresh start for me for like 2.5 years ago. So a lot of time was actually spent working on all that stuff and getting that together so my team is able to operate at a high level. But I came back and I did go to JS7, but I was literally back for, I think I was back for about 24 hours. I got in Wednesday night late. And then I worked all day Thursday. Thursday evening we had practice. So I went out just to see if I could remember how to ride. Like, I think, do I even know how to ride a dirt bike like this? I'm like, okay, I can do this. I was able to do 5 laps, like huffing and puffing. My night track's only like a minute, depending on the speed. I didn't have, any of the Lit Pro or anything on, but I'm guessing I probably was running about 110s.
Okay.
My good speed's probably like about a 105, and then the top A riders are probably close to a minute, right? So it's not a long, it's 5 minute race, right? 5 minute ride, and definitely not racing conditions. But I'm like, okay, I made it through this. And JP Parsons had invited me to come out to Freestone. I'm like, I'm going to drive all the way up there and not be here at Cycle Ranch because I had a list of things to do at Cycle Ranch when I got there, right? Like from build a playground to contact my sponsors, go visit people, make sure I'm there with the community. And riding was not even part of my plan.
Sure.
Like it was going to happen. I just didn't know how soon. And instead, let me rewind. Before I even came back to Cycle Ranch, I came a week early to the States, but I was at a wedding in Miami in South Beach. I wasn't getting much rest.
No.
It's insane. I was not getting much rest. So I felt like I was exhausted, but then I got to Cycle Ranch and then I did all that, went and practiced, and then I got up at 4 o'clock in the morning and drove to Freestone. And it poured rain. So it delayed the gate drop, and I was going to be second moto. And I literally got there, unloaded my bike, and actually, I had the guys from Big Dan from Munn help me unload my bike because I didn't even have my ramp. I had somebody load it for me after I washed. I'm like, I have to go get my gear together and get everything packed. And can you just wash my bike and load it up? And they're like, we got you. Right. So my team, Logan and Matt and Cody, all worked to get it so I could even leave. Fortunately, I got people like that in my corner. There, Big Dan helps me unload my bike. He's like, you got to do your sight lap. They're going to do a sight lap in a minute here. And I'm like, yeah, I probably should do that because I've never been on this track before.
Yeah.
So I ran and registered, got my gear on, and I went up for my sight lap. And then I came back and then I went and got my transponder. And then I filled up my bike with gas. And then I went out and I was second moto. So the first moto was on and then I was out. I barely made it through. I barely made it through. I just was holding on for dear life. That track got so rough. My bike was not set up for it. I was not set up for it. Still mustered a fifth. Like worst showing I think I've ever had in terms of my performance level versus outcome. But I was just like, I just got to survive this. And then the next day I raced again and I was the last or second to last moto again. Sun in the eyes, the track so beat up. And I just barely made it through. I ended up winning the JS7 invitation. Somehow I got pulled to the draw. Dean Dice was on the podium, and I know him because he's trained me before. Great kid. Well, now he's a man. And I met so many people from the industry, and somehow it just like injected this charge into me, and it just like rejuvenated all the love that I've ever had for motocross and compressed it into this one thing. And just the fact that I accomplished it and made it home safely on Saturday night about midnight, then I've just been like, I just feel so supported by, divine force above. And I know that definitely has me reeling, but I wasn't rested. I guess that was a long way to say I wasn't rested. So
Yeah, it's
some
tough.
ways I was rested, but
Yeah, it's tough. Well, you think about the typical factory team. What do we have underneath the awning? 8, 10, 12 people. And all of our listeners, they're driver, they're mechanic, they're cheerleader, they're feeding themselves. They're doing it all. And we walk up and we see how streamlined the process is under the awning. And we're doing all that plus working, taking care of a family and all that goes with it. So that's what I love about this sport. You can't run and hide from anything. As we always say, athleticism, the world of athletics emulates the true thing about life. If you work hard, you keep your nose clean, do the right things, life will reward you. And that's what's great about moto. You treat people nicely, you do the right thing, you work hard. And like you said, you've got a good network of people around you because good people gravitate towards good people and champions gravitate towards champions and like-minded. And yeah, we might be a little fat around the belly. We might not be doing everything perfect because we've got a family and a job, but our commonality is we enjoy it and we look out for each other. And I absolutely love it. It's the best sport in the world, in my opinion. Most sincere group I've ever worked with.
yeah. And as you're saying this, I'm thinking about like, why do we do this? Right. That
Yeah.
was one of the key things. Like, I think stepping away and then coming back and then having the experience I did, Clayton Miller from Freestone, him and his wife, like what they go through to put on that event, and they don't need to do it. It's not like a financial. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm sure they're financially successful with it, but they have enough other things going on. It's not like they have to do a motocross track to make money, right?
Yeah.
Um, they were just so welcoming and so kind. And JP and Shan, and then Corey Cochran, who lives out here, he started announcing. He was, just awesome to be around. And then Malcolm McCaskey, and I actually got to meet with Mike Burkeen at the AMA, and then met with a number of different trainers about what we could do at Cycle Ranch and the programs that we're doing. So trainers, sponsors, um, the people that organize a lot of these races. And it felt like, I know that I have certain people in my corner, like my family, right? And then the people here at Cycle Ranch, we work together hand in hand. And today Matt and I had to carry like a 300-pound culvert, like 300 feet, and then like we work together, like, so I know I have them. But actually getting out of Cycle Ranch and getting to another facility, and then seeing that my circle is bigger and I'm supported by more than my regular people that I see all the time, definitely like threw some fire in me. And it actually taught me how I can give back more to the people that come to Cycle Ranch.
Mm.
So a thing for me was, and you probably get this in some way with your coaching, maybe a little different, but when people come to Cycle Ranch, like everybody's going to probably be nice to me. Like I'm the owner, right? So I've got some kind of clout. And then I have people on payroll, right? So they're being paid to be here, or they're paying to be here because they want to be part of an event and they want to be welcomed back and have the best experience possible. So I never know who's really real. Like I never can really tell. But now I'm out of that element, and 0 people are on my payroll. Nobody's selling their product at my track. Like if Mun comes to my track, of course they're going to be nice to me, right? They better be, and not to single out Mun, but any
Sure.
vendor that's in the
Sure.
motorcycle industry, they should be nice to me, like, because I can do something for them that's going to actually help them with their livelihood. And then directly, obviously, my employees, they benefit from it, right? I put food on their table. But to go out of that element where I wasn't paying the announcer, and the announcer was even more generous and kind to me than I feel like I can even receive when they're here, and I got to see that they were really real. I guess it cleared out insecurities I had about who was real and who was really here for the same things I was.
Yeah,
And
that's
I think that
big.
lifted a big weight off my shoulders. And I bet that happens. Does that happen to you with training and trainers or students, where it's like, they're benefiting from your presence, so like you don't really know if they're really real there for you? Do you ever have that thought?
I'll give you a specific example with somebody that trained with us when you were here in Florida. Remember Jeff Tody?
Yeah.
The answer to your question is yes. And Jeff went on to become a Navy SEAL. And, he says that the things that we taught him, the life that he lived, his parents were very kind to give him an opportunity to come to Florida and train with us full time, lived in a nice motorhome. That's when you see it where people say, hey, you influenced my life directly or indirectly. Yeah, that's the reason. If it fits right into that, what we said earlier, that definition of volition, what gets you out of bed, just trying to make the world a better place today than I found it this morning. And not that that's a textbook cliche, but just try to live and die by that mantra. And it's been a real blessing for 38, now 39 years at the time of this recording, that yeah, people that you met a decade ago, 20 years ago, you're now working with their children. You're seeing that second generation, people that you and I watched as a pro that were 19 to 22. What are we seeing? We're seeing Nick Way racing. We're seeing we're seeing Nick Way's son racing. We're seeing Chad Reed's son racing. You're seeing Olaf's son is racing. You're seeing some really good talent coming up, and we all remember their parent. Look at Max Volan. You remember both his dad and his uncle. It's crazy. That's what makes it nice. And selfishly for me, with things like the internet that has made the ability to get messages out there, people to be able to ask interactive questions. I've said this to you off the record. We've got 23,000 people that follow us on YouTube. Nobody wants to see my ugly face on YouTube. When you recognize that our videos are generated by the questions that come in, and I know that if you've had the question and you took the time to send it to me, your question is going to benefit 5, 10, 100, we have one video, believe it or not, how to use a kickboard in our triathlon swimming division that has over 1 million views. So if we can make some kind of an indelible improvement in somebody's fitness, ability, efficiency, whatever it may be, if we can solve a pain point, that was the whole catalyst and behind us starting Complete Med Solutions. It's a complete turnkey blood evaluation service geared towards health and performance. I don't want this to sound arrogant. I don't need to start another company, but it's kind of like from that movie Robot, see a need, fill a need. I started my sports drink Energy Fuel because there was a need. There wasn't a sports drink that matched the intensity and duration. It's not a sales pitch of my products. It's about answering your question. Why do we do what we do? Well, if I see there's a need, I'm going to find something to fill that need. I believe Moto does not have a true amateur development program. So 14 years ago, I started an amateur development program. We have a 20-man motocross team. We have a 20-person off-road team, and we have a factory team. Well, the whole idea here is to try to give our younger athletes an opportunity to be able to develop and make a living at racing. I have a network of coaches. I have a network of facilities, including yours. It's just the idea is see a need, fill a need. And when we can go, like somebody that we've worked with maybe right now that's on an 85, they make their way through, go all the way to the pros, they make their money. We don't want that knowledge and experience to leave our sport. That's why we started an education program. Again, I'm just giving you little slivers of things that we
Yeah.
do behind the scenes. We have a CRS certified coaching program. Why? Because you as an athlete have the experience. Let's give you the knowledge. Let's give you a legitimate degree. And then let's do some level of placement by having you go to one of our CRS facilities around the world. So that's the name of the game. And yeah, when people come back and go, you changed me this way, or you helped me see things this way, or a perspective change, there's no money in the world that's more valuable than that. But that's my volition, is just trying to make the world better than I found it this morning when I woke up. I just try to live and die by that every day. Are there frustrations? I don't want the listeners to think, oh, he lives this little utopic world. I don't live in a glass house. None of us do. We've all got our trials and tribulations, but it's good to know you've got good people around you that when you are going through trials and tribulations, you've got someone that, especially as men, right? Who are we going to go talk to when we're having a bad day? We're supposed to be the anchor,
God,
It's
that's
tough.
it.
Yeah,
That's it.
it's
It's
tough.
like it's cool to hear you say that too, because I don't think people realize like how common that is for men to kind of just act in this silo and just have a certain level of responsibility,
Mhm,
which is the certain level is like 100% responsibility for everything all the time.
mhm,
And there's an expectation and providership, and we don't know what we're doing. Like none of us know what we're doing.
mhm.
We know that we're doing the best with what we know. I think at least that's my assumption. Maybe that's what I think I'm doing, right?
Sure,
But
sure.
so I'm assuming that other people are doing it. I'm projecting on them, but like then you have people that kind of try to cut the man off and say that's toxic, but like we're just trying to get through the day. We're trying to pay the bills. We're trying to feed our family. Like we have all these, for lack of a better term, obligations, which are also, opportunities and a great thing for us to be able to express for ourselves and challenges to push us forward. That why do we get up every single day, right? But
Mhm,
then we can get on a dirt bike and we can put all of those responsibilities, unless we're a pro racer, right? That's feeding our family, but the most of us are just putting those responsibilities aside for a second and saying, okay, I'm going to do this for my own mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual health. Like it really encompasses all of those things.
mhm.
Get on a dirt bike and go jump a 200 or 150-foot jump. And we do it like it's nothing
Yeah,
sometimes,
yep.
but it's like a great way to rejuvenate us so we can go back into the world. And if we're doing that on the weekends, and that's just one thing I really noticed, like after just getting through JS7, I raced last weekend. It was super easy, but anything I have to do work wise or any issue that I have coming up during the week, it's like child's play because what I've dealt with over the weekend in those racing conditions was so much harder than anything else, and
Mhm.
harder, more challenging, I should say. So everything else is like, oh, this is breezy. I mean, it might not be fun, it might not
Yeah.
be what I want to be happening, but comparing it to like the what I just dealt with on the track, they gated me with my 125 or my 144 gated me with 250C
Mm.
in my last weekend racing here at Cycle Ranch. It's like 25 people on the gate, and most of them on 250Fs, a little bit faster, especially in the sand that we have here. And they don't have to go to work. They don't have like and we're kids,
Yeah.
right? And like just that stress of making it to the first corner is more than anything else.
Yeah, 100%. Well, and when it comes back to the subject of being a man, if if one of our listeners decided they wanted to go be a doctor, they're not trying to figure out what there's libraries and libraries and libraries full of books. Books are cliff note versions on getting to where you want to be in a shorter period of time. And I think that's what's so important about men being able to network and being authentically themselves to say, hey, look, I may not know fill in the blank. There may be a listener that has an accounting background. I don't have an accounting background. I have questions. So I don't want to show my weakness on something I don't know. But if I can network with somebody who does know, goes back to, if you want to even go back to even earlier days, you farm, you cultivate cattle, this guy cultivates pigs, this guy is a shoemaker, a leather, steel maker, whatever the its may be, and you all come together, you bring your strengths together, and collectively we all, rising tide rises all boats, as Johnny Hopper says. That's what I think is so desperately needed, especially when we get into the motocross world, because I like the way you articulated. We'd like to think we know what we're doing. You mentioned going and racing JS7 and then going back to your track makes it easier. That's what we refer to as the overload principle. And it's the same thing here. If there's somebody who's an accountant and they know numbers left and backwards, frontwards, just give me the cliff note version of what I need to know to get where I'm at to where I need to be. Help me understand taxes, help me understand tax laws, whatever it is. You start bringing 5 guys and 10 guys, 20 guys together, there's nothing that we collectively, and that, I guess, the hardest part is feeling comfortable enough in a group of 15 or 20 men to be able to say with a straight face, I honestly don't know tax laws. I don't know how to hang a fence. I don't know how to, you know, revalve a bike, whatever it is. But then be able to say, do you mind helping me? Help me understand it. And this is where we get into some really deep interpersonal relationships, because if you know something and you sincerely want to help me, keyword, and expecting nothing in return, I'm going to feel that. And then you're expecting not in a malicious way whatsoever, but then when you give me something, you want to feel comfortable enough that if you have a question and I have that answer, that you're going to trust that I want to give you that information. Well, now you just built the ultimate interpersonal relationship. And I know this sounds a little bit convoluted, but if I'll use my wife as an example. I have a massage therapy background. If every time my wife asks me for a massage and I go, "Oh, yeah, I guess, whatever." Well, I've just jeopardized her trust. She's got to feel safe enough to say, "Hey, I've got a headache. Do you mind massaging my shoulders?" Nope, I'll go get my massage table. We'll take care of it. But this is where we get into the chicken and the egg. If she's not comfortable to be able to ask that, then she's afraid to ask it. And then she's thinking, all right, he's giving me the massage just to shut me up. So now she doesn't think I really want to do it. So she doesn't get much out of it. And now we just start this, what Michaela and I call the gray zone. No gray zones, because the ball has to bounce both ways. I may just kind of be just tired enough that, you know what, I honestly, I wouldn't be able to give you a good massage right now. It goes back to what you said earlier, Ian, when you were up for 24 hours straight. I probably wouldn't be able to give you a good massage as tired as you were coming back home at midnight. But she's got to know that if I say no, it's not that I don't want to. I just think for the benefit of her, it's not going to be good. Do you see where the gray can get really convoluted and dark real quick? That's the hard part. And I think men need more of that. I really, really do.
Yeah, I also call that mind reading,
Mhm.
right? That somebody says, what does that
Mhm.
mean? And I'm gonna guess what it means based on what usually comes after it, right?
Mhm.
Or some weird distance. And a lot of times we project what we think that means, where the person might just be exhaling,
Mhm.
right? So it's making sure that the communication's open enough, and with your spouse or your partner or really close friends, that communication might be easy, right? If you got a good relationship, that relationship's easy. But back to your point, feeling comfortable in a group of 50 people you don't know and expressing the you don't know anything or know some topic
Sure.
sometimes can be challenging, but that's really, that's kind of like an egoic thing, right? So
Mhm.
it's a matter of us being willing to drop our attitude and be like, I don't know if I know how to do anything. Like,
Mhm.
and there's been so many times that I thought I knew how to do something, and then it turned out to be wrong,
Yeah.
or maybe not wrong, but maybe not the best way to do it. That
Sure.
like this comes, I think, with I don't know if it comes with age or like maybe it's just a lot of failure. Like now, I'm just like I have no clue. Like you tell me, like 9.9 out of 10 times, I'm gonna just be like, I'll yield. Like you, all right, you tell me. I know I own the motocross track. You tell me how to prep it,
Yep.
right? And that goes to by having that attitude, it actually helps with because in the past I would be annoyed. I'd be like, "Come on, like I've just worked this whole week. I worked 80 hours this week. I spent my money out of my own pocket to do this. I haven't seen my wife. I haven't seen my friends. I'm covered in mud and grease and dirt, and my fingernails are long and like I can't even wash my hands clean because they're so dirty. And you're sitting here complaining about this thing over here.
Mhm.
But that thing that they're complaining about, or the thing that somebody's asking about, is that need that's going unfilled
Mhm.
that you talked about before. And that's actually why if somebody that is watching right now could ask some questions, we could start to engage with you, right? And it's not just me. And Rob and I can talk all day. So if you don't have any questions, Rob and I will just talk all day. Um, but when somebody else expresses that question, before I thought it was like criticism, and now I realize it's just the way that people are asking. Well, I mean, that's why it's a question, but it's the way that people are saying, "Hey, there's this thing that," and sometimes it's not even a question, sometimes it's a statement, but it's bringing out that need that goes unfilled. And when I hear a trend in that, and people are saying something consistently, and then all of a sudden I start to give it a lot of merit because there starts to become a pattern, and that's why I think when you talked about launching another business, you didn't need to. Why would you launch another business? Like you have enough things to do on a daily basis.
Mhm.
Definitely have enough things to do, and you don't not doing it because you need extra income. Why? Because there's a need for it, and you're the guy that can do it because you can. And if you don't, and you have, maybe I'm projecting because this is maybe how I feel, but like if I don't do the best with what the gifts that God gave me, then that's like the ultimate sin. Well, maybe it's not the ultimate sin, but it's definitely a sin.
Mhm.
It's like that's like so disrespectful if I have these gifts and then I just don't use them. So thank you, Alex, for dropping in a question. Do you have something you want to say to that, Rob, or
The
should I
only thing
throw?
that I was gonna kinda to me, it's an ironic twist is when you look at what we call social media, I think it's teaching us to be antisocial because, as the old saying goes, the comparison is the theft of joy. So what are we so busy doing, right? We're looking on whatever platform that's out there, so preoccupied about what everyone else is saying, doing, eating, wearing, working out, so called, because the social media is such a it's so filled with nonsense. 99.9% of what you see people aren't doing. I know for an absolute fact that there's some professionals out there that get paid to do staged things. And whether it's behind a particular brand or a product or a service, literally their contract states you must put out X amount of posts per week or per month. And talk to the guys, it's staged. And then, like, if you look at the idea that when we were growing up, one of the biggest challenges we've all had was to learn how to communicate. That's why we had speech class. And now you have people nowadays who get their feelings hurt because a text somehow directly, indirectly insinuated something because you can't feel a tone or a flavor of a text. to the point that now we can't even type out a word. We have to put everything in an abbreviation. So look at what we're doing to the ability to communicate. Can't say I know. You can say in my opinion. You can't. Everything's got to be abbreviated in a text format that involves absolutely zero verbal engagement. This is why the podium speeches are absolutely horrendously painful to listen to. But we have nobody to blame but ourselves because we allow it. And it's not a PC, it's not a platform to complain about social media. It's just when you and I just talked about having no gray zones, well, the gray zones come as a byproduct of communication. I always said, I always vowed, please don't say something unless you mean it. And if you don't mean it, please don't say it. And then when you say it, it has to be trusted that you meant it. And that's the only way you can avoid gray zones. Being married for 25 years, going through a nasty 5-year divorce, there's no way I was ever going to trust an interpersonal relationship. One thing leads to another, right? So the first time I meet Michaela, I'm completely resistant to any female in my life. I was going to be my boy's dad and I was going to build businesses, and that's my only job. That's why God put me on earth. Then when we start dating, and Michaela gets full credit for it, she pushed it way harder because I was like, nope, not doing it, not interested. The only thing that we talked about at the very beginning was no gray zones. And I think that's where, like you talked about, we have a tendency to convolute things, and then the message gets convoluted, then the intention gets convoluted, then it's gone backwards so fast. So I'm interested on the question.
Yeah, and I just to close that, I'm going to just give you
Yeah.
one thing that I learned. So that just works so effectively in my relationship. So when somebody says something that I all of a sudden go into my mind reading and think that it's some negative thing and it's about to cause some confrontation, rather than responding to it, and it's funny to do. It feels really awkward. It's a combination of mirroring and taking out the word you. So what think I just heard Rob say was, when there's no gray zones, dot, 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 and say it as close to like verbatim as possible. So if somebody says something to me that I'm like, whoa, did she just say that? Or he just say that? I'll take that and I'll say it back to their verbatim. Like, I think I just heard person certain name, not you. Because you, it's like it hits people and they get like
Mm-hmm.
defensive, right? I think I just heard Rob say dot 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 dot. And if it's nasty, if they meant it nasty, they'll hear it and they'll be like, oh, that's not what I meant. That sounds horrible. This is what I meant. And they can revise it. So it's a trick that I'm just sharing it because I'd love to see my community using it, because it takes away like 99% of confrontation and it deletes that projection that we think we know what that person said. So
Yeah.
anybody here, test it out. Tell me what you think. But I want to get to these questions. And now we have a few here. We have Alex just dropped in a question. I'm going to show that. And we also have Mike. And keep the questions rolling in. But Mike actually brought up the topic of one of the questions we have automatically happening in the comments. I don't know if you can see this, Rob, is like,
Yeah.
how do you think we can grow the motocross community? And Alex asks, how can we get people to travel further to ride more tracks? So I have some ways that I've been doing it, and it's really interesting. But first, I want to hear your take on it, Rob.
It goes back to that business 101. First and foremost, deliver what you promise. If you say the track's going to be open at 10 a.m., be open at 10, not 11:45, not noon. Heaven forbid, not open up at all. We see a lot of that. And then again, don't overpromise and underdeliver. If you say the track's going to be prepped properly, prep the track properly. If you say the bathrooms are working, they're going to be clean, make sure they're clean and working. Because you won't, stealing an old business cliche, you only get one chance to you don't get a second chance to make a first impression. And if somebody's especially when it's not like you and I are getting together to go for a run that it only requires a water bottle and a pair of shoes and a heart rate monitor. You're loading up a bike and you're loading up gear and your family and fuel and all that goes with it. And that's what I think is missing is, unfortunately, there was a lot of bait and switch out there. Track's all prepped, and then people get there and hasn't been touched. Now, obviously, this is a very sensitive subject because you're a track owner, but to the point that, like what Alex is saying, you want people to travel further, give them I don't want to say give them a reason. The reason's to come ride, but make sure that what they come to receive or what they expect to receive is delivered. That's all. I think it's business 101.
You know, I'm so glad I had you answer this first and respond to this first, because like, to me, that's like so obvious. I take it like for granted that's why like even today it was drizzling. I did a live feed. I showed people exactly what it was all week last week. It was drizzling. In Texas, we can ride all year round.
Hmm.
So there's a cloud in the sky, or if it's raining 30 miles from here, people think that it's raining here, and they won't come because there isn't a short season like in the Northeast, rain or shine. I mean, I raced Loretta's qualifier and by the end of the first moto, there was 2 inches or 3 inches of snow on the ground. Right? It started off not, but it was blizzard. You could barely even see. But I wanted to qualify for Loretta, so we did that, and I didn't complain. I didn't even care. I was like, I'm riding my dirt bike.
Yep.
I used to ride laps in the snow so it would melt.
Yep.
No, like that. So when I came to Texas, and I was like, oh wow, like this is like paradise. We have all year round. Oh, when am I going to break down my bike? Oh, I got to do this on the weekends. I can't wait to the end of the race season, right? When am I going to save money for riding? Oh, I can't. So it makes it very easy to just like not go if it's raining. And it got to the point where now the tracks shut. A lot of tracks around here shut down if there's a threat of rain. And I come from a totally different world where I'm like, why would you do that? Like, that seems
Hmm.
so weird. Like, so I'm like, okay, we're going to stay open. We're not going to shut down because of rain. If it's torrential and people are going to just destroy their bikes, we're going to close for that. Like, we have one track that can usually handle it, but if there's any of that threat, if any of it's happening, not only am I going to do a live feed about it, but I'm probably going to look at the forecast and show that people, yeah, it's going to rain an inch today, and we have 90% chance of it, but it's only going to be 5/10 of an inch an hour or I should say five hundredths of an inch per hour, right? Like, and
Yep.
so the track can handle it, and I'll show them like the dirt, and I'll be digging it out with my hand. So I want to like really try to create any if there's a shadow of a doubt, I want to resolve it. And if
Yep.
there is a concern, like I can't promise that we're not going to have a wave come through. People are traveling. Actually, that's what first thing I was going to say to Alex was people travel here. Like people travel so much to come to Cycle Ranch. We have a local group, and it's growing. It's been growing a lot in the last 6 months. But people on average, I think, travel over an hour to come here. A lot of times, 3 hours to come here. And maybe it's because of the things you just mentioned, that the consistency, um, the actual giving people the updates and hopefully exceeding expectations, or at the very least managing them, and not creating like a hype around something that shouldn't be hyped. Like I absolutely try not to do that. Like if I'm saying it's as true as I believe in my heart. Otherwise, I'm just
Yeah.
going to keep my mouth shut about it, or I'll give people the real deal. Um, and if you go back and watch the lives on Instagram, that's usually where we post this stuff. You could see it like this weekend. Threat of rain. We got some drizzle all week. People came for spring break, and they're like, I think we're going to leave Thursday because it's going to rain. I'm like, it's going to go right around us. I'm looking at the fork. I know exactly how it works here. We need a little different type of storm. And it did. Like, I was like 80% certainty, and it went right around us. And we had, a little thunder and lightning for a few hours, but then it was great. So I'm 100% with you. Like, because I have been in bait and switch. I have driven an hour to a track to find it closed or like unrideable or weird conditions, and it's just like destroying my bike, or just not a fun thing. And it even happened in the Northeast where we went to go race and track was closed, and oh well, we ended up having to have breakfast at the diner together because we're all up at 5 o'clock in the morning. So we still make the best of it, right?
Yeah.
But definitely, I agree with that. Like, you got to have that consistency. Some of the things we're doing here is we have 2 RVs on site that you can rent and you can stay. We have 2 e-bikes that people can rent for like pit bike, but they're like Surons, but they're better. It's a Mantis Raw. I'll say it's better because they haven't broken. I hit big jumps on them, and a lot of other people do. Um, and then we have everything from an E5, TTR 125, TT 125. We have a CR 125. We have um, several bikes for bike rental. So we actually have people flying in. We have loaner helmets, loaner boots, um, and some gear and goggles and stuff like that. Literally, we have people that are booked out to come stay in May. They booked learn to ride lessons. They booked bikes for rent. Um, so 2 months out from now, um, that's happening. We have people coming from MotoGP in Austin, and they're coming from Spain. More bike rentals, and they book their ride passes. So we're doing whatever we can to accommodate that. My wife and I just drove up. We made our family day yesterday. Was us driving about 4 hours round trip in the car to go look at housing units so we can put some kind of what we're thinking is kind of making it like a hotel room size um, size rooms people can come stay, and it looks like that's what's going to happen, and we'll have 1 to 5 cabins on here eventually, but we're going to start with the 1 so people can stay. We do have cabins, but they're rented out long term right now, and one we turned into a playroom for the kids so everybody in the family can do it. So that's another thing is that we're doing so the whole family can come. We have a cafe with really healthy food. You mentioned earlier how important the healthy food is in eating. Like,
Yep.
no joke, smoothies, like burgers that are healthy, like good for you. Our sodas are the Olipops, which have probiotics in them, right? We do have some of the other options because people are like still stuck on it, but 90% of what we have in that cafe is going to fuel you so you're feeling great. So these are some of the things that we're doing um, to get more people, and then we're also doing a lot of outreach via web um, to get people to see what we offer. So we can target locally for those things, but we're actually going globally on some web ads, and then my background is online advertising, so I know how to do all the measurements to make sure that we're not just burning cash doing it, and we can see what's working and what's not. So you burn a little cash in the beginning figuring out the formulas, but we just finally got to that stage because I set up the back end properly while I was away this time. So that's kind of what we're doing right now, to make it appealing for people to come a distance. And then locally, we just get involved with the community. Last week we just had 150 kids signed up for a spring break from the community that don't like the local Floresville, Wilson County community. That one of them said they had a dirt bike of their grandfather's, and almost every parent said, "I didn't even realize this was here. This is so cool." We had bouncy castles set up. We had somebody come and do yoga. We had somebody come and do HIIT. The person that was doing the HIIT training, the exercise they were doing was like perfect for learning how to start fast, because you sat like, or you stood 2 different people, different sides, and they had a cone you had to grab. So you have opponent, and they would be like, they'd say things like head, and you would put your hands at head, and they'd be like shoulders, and then say head, and then like go. And so it was like all these things to disrupt your normal, and probably stuff that you do a lot of. Um, and you see them competing with each other. So you can see some of it in the reels that we dropped. But I was like, this is amazing. This is like, now I brought the community of Floresville into the venue. And guess what happened? Well, we had 40 new racers sign up to race that never raced with us before on Saturday night.
Very
Uh,
cool.
and not just from that, but of a culmination of things. So
Sure.
that's some of the things we are doing, Alex. I don't know 100% yet which ones are working, but if you got creative ideas, and that's why we posed the question, is like, bring your creative ideas to us and we can try implementing them. I might ask you to help though. You might have to come out, Alex. So I know that was a lot of stuff. Anything you want to say in regards to that, Rob?
No, like you say, it's I don't want this to turn into a business meeting, but it's the idea that this is not a bro network. I think that's one of the biggest things that's holding our sport back from growing. On my side, selfishly, every ex pro is now a physiologist and a nutritionalist and a sports psychologist. And I just think that that's hurting our sport more than it's helping it, because I, I've had numerous motorcycles and I've read the manuals on all of them. And as I tease you all the time, no one should ever hire me as a full-time professional mechanic. That's not my lane. That's not my wheelhouse. That's not my play box. But unfortunately, you've got parents who don't know where to get the information. That's why we work so hard to get our services to be made aware of. That's why I'll take every opportunity I can to help educate a parent on the difference of being hydrated versus being fueled. The ratio of strength to flexibility, the importance of stabilized blood sugar for an athlete to hit their marks. The faster you go, the more stabilized your blood sugar has to be because of processing speed. These are things that are real. And yet, just because somebody was in a factory rig doesn't mean they know these things. But yet they're out there influencing our next generation of riders from young all the way up to vet. Well, if unfortunately the attrition and the injury rate is so high, that causes our sport to not grow. It's not me having a vendetta against anybody. It's like it's like me raising holy heck that nobody will hire me as a professional mechanic. Well, it's because I'm going to kill somebody, right? I'm going to make a bike that's going to grenade and someone's going to get hurt. I don't want that. I don't want that for them. And I don't want that on my shoulders. So, exactly what you're doing, building a business based on customer service, having creative ideas, reinvesting in the ideas. And that's why the facility has grown the way it has. I feel honored that we've reconnected at a business level, trying to add more value as a facility. But it's this exact model that we're doing as a company. But what we need is another 50 to 100 Ians in your track model. That's where it's going to make a difference. So we need to always be thinking about how do we grow the sport from the inside out. If the attrition rate is on the bottom is as high as the people coming in, you have a negative net growth. And you say, well, how can it be negative if they're equal? Well, because usually when one person leaves, it takes more than one out of the sport. So if dad leaves, it takes dad and his children. We got to always think about that multiple. Always, always.
You brought up such a good point, because I remember as a racer, I would be so annoyed with the AMA and MX Sports and the people that like have the reach, and like, why aren't you in? And even as a track owner, there's been times where I've been like, what? Why aren't you investing in this sport? Like, if you have this big media company and you have the reach to all these racers and all these riders, why aren't you telling our story? Why aren't you getting out what happened? Like, Cycle News was awesome, and they would at least publish race results in it, right? Like, I don't
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if AMA or MX Sports has any of that stuff for amateurs, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you got companies like Moto Playground and Verb that popped up, and I think Vital does a little stuff, and they're helping. But I would be annoyed that the top, because I would say they're the top. They're the ones like managing everything, right? And we feed them. All the riders we bring in are the eyeballs that they get and they monetize. And I'd be so annoyed that they weren't like seeing that their number one job should be helping to grow the sport, because that's going to grow their memberships or their viewership or their subscriptions or whatever they're selling, right?
Mm-hmm.
But when you just said that, like, I think it was growing it from the inside out, I think I heard Rob say.
Yes, sir.
And um like that kind of put the epiphany off in my head. Like, that's exactly what I'm doing. Like, I can spend time being annoyed at anyone.
Yeah.
That's easy.
Yeah.
Anyone or some group of things. But like, I'm not expecting the government to send me a check. I mean, some people are. I'm not expecting the government to tell me how to eat healthy. I mean, some people might be, but I mean, the food pyramid's upside down, and now they have this other weird thing where Frosted Flakes is above eggs. Like, I don't know what's going on there, and the people that are health ministers or whatever their title is in health, like they don't look healthy in any shape or form, like not just because of their size, but like their skin complexion and everything. They look very sickly. It's
Yeah.
like very obvious to see. I don't expect them to advise me or anyone. So why would I expect it in over here? And in the world of motocross, I should say.
Yeah.
Right. So we got like, and I'm not hating on anybody. I would love for them to join. I would love for them to be like, you know what? That makes sense. But at the end of the day, I can only do what I can do. And that's true for every single rider and every single parent of riders. And we have lots of parents inviting out their friends and their friends' kids to Cycle Ranch based on what's been going on here. We have school teachers that are telling the kids about it. It's awesome. So it's happening. But if you're watching this, like when was the last time you invited somebody to the track that's never been here before? Whether it's Cycle Ranch or you're in Florida or Timbuktu, like what doesn't matter. Are you helping? Like
I
maybe
think I think that's very, very important, Ian. We're not talking about us. We're talking about the community from one side of the globe all the way to the other. So I'm glad that you clarified that because it's not about trying to pad our pockets. This is why I said I'm so impressed that you've built a business model that benefits the moto community. Unfortunately, a lot of the people that are out there, they've got that model completely turned around. As long as it pads their pocket, then they'll go ahead and they'll say, yep, we have a track. Well, that track is really not about growing the community. And
it's
we,
funny
like I
because
said,
oh, go ahead.
no, I was going to say we could talk for another 3 hours on this exact thing because you've got to start with philosophy, and then what you've got to spend the next 3 hours talking about is getting the boots on the ground and putting concepts into reality that get them put in motion with the right purpose. And I hate to use the word agenda because it usually has a negative connotation. That's what's missing. That's what's missing.
I mean, intention. If we want to delete the word agenda, but the agenda is like laid out. Like every single
Mhm.
meeting has an agenda. Usually, I would do a talk like this and have an agenda so that we are in a scope. But I like how our conversations kind of dance a little bit and we get a little more input from the viewers.
Yes.
Um, but taking this approach that I have, like with, and actually lights are going on for me, so I'm just kind of realizing this. So if it doesn't make sense, then just bear with me. But the approach of growing the community and serving the community, I go to the sponsors with this idea and they want to make sure they're going to have a return on their investment. And I get that. Like I get it 100%. My background is in direct response advertising. That's where I made my money. And it's easy to make money when you can measure things and just look at a spreadsheet and be unemotional about it. And so I understand where they are. And meanwhile, I'm coming to them with this idea and this thought, and they're like, this is what I care about. But I've been able to work with my local advertisers and global ones like MotoSmart, Alamo, Iron Supply, VP, TJs, like all these people that are supporting us. And they we've done it in a way, most of them where we integrated a way to measure the success of it. So they do see that return on their investment. They just realize that it's going to take a little bit longer to see. It's not going to be like I'm buying a CPC on Google and I'm getting my conversion and they can't see it right away. So, um, so that's been, if anybody's got in this industry listening to this, like, and wants to dive into that stuff and it will help me to think about how I'm doing it. It's creating a standard operating procedure for me too. Like I'm down to help anybody in any way. If you have an idea of how to grow this sport or need help with what you guys are doing. Um,
But you
but I
also
do
just
want
exposed one of the biggest problems of the bro network because I've seen many instances where someone like yourself that's good at quantifying it, not being fictitious and inflating the books, but legitimately showing foot traffic across the front gate, how many eyeballs got on it, right? And you're being compared to another project at another facility that's total hogwash, but because they have a bro network and this guy or girl, this man or woman controls the purse strings, they keep the bro money over here because it's a bro network. And that's where it comes back full circle that the sport doesn't grow because You're over here, you're showing foot traffic, you're showing year over date, you're showing percentage of improvement, and you're showing things that you're doing that you're not charging them for, i.e., the amount of time and energy that you spend going and spending 4 hours on your day with your family to go find ways to creatively bring more attraction to the facility. You're not asking them to pay for that. But because you're not currently in the bro network, that money continues to go to a track that gets 200 people. And over the course of a week or a weekend, you bring in 5,000 people, you still don't get the money. Now, this isn't new to Moto. This is just business BS as it is, right? But if our intention is to grow the industry, if it's to grow the sport, if it's to expose people to things that we love and have enjoyed our entire lives, this is where we have to break the bro network. And this is where you run into, unfortunately, how does the top brass not see what we're trying to do? Well, because they're not interested in growing the market. They're interested in only cannibalizing the pot of money. Now, that's not a character assassination. That's not false accusations. Just look at the lack of growth of our sport, but look at the proliferation of motorcycle sales. The two
100%.
don't line up. They don't line
Uh,
up.
100%. And one of the key things that we didn't even mention here is we work with Fund My Race, and Fund My Race is a platform for racers to be able to raise money, like a GoFundMe. And I called up Jonathan Silva there, who started it, like reached out to him. I didn't know him. Turned out we had a bunch of friends in common, but he didn't do the bro network thing. He ended up seeing my vision. I'm like, let's make a pro purse that anybody could donate to, because people always like, the amateur racers, they never get enough money. We need bigger purses for our local pros. So I was like, all right, great. We'll find a way to do it. Got with Fund My Race because I was going to do it on a different network. They came to my awareness. He put up some money to start it. We're continuing to work together throughout this whole entire year, and anybody can donate. So if you're watching this right now and you want to grow it, their sport, go donate to our pro purse on Fund My Race. It's a 501c3, and it can be $5, it can be $50, whatever. So you can actually write it off, and then you can actually put money in the pockets of the people that are trying to make their way, right? So that was another avenue that we came to. I thought it was going to spread like wildfire. I thought people were going to see it because I heard this, like we talked about earlier. You mentioned you hear this pain point a lot, like you find a solution for it, people are going to love it. It literally took me like hard calling people, like, and being like, hey, I need your support for this event. Let's get this off the ground. Let's get it rolling. And they were doing it because of our relationship, kind of bro network ish. But instead of the money coming to Cycle Ranch, they got a write off, and it went right in the pockets of the racers.
But that's not a
So
bro network. That's a business savvy individual who's trying to make it a win-win for the investor and the end receiver. It didn't go to Cycle Ranch. So you can't call it a bro network. It's a networking of friends, and it's kind of a friends and family. But now, Ian, we're not going to mention any names. You go out of your way, you put this together, the fans, they invest in this, we get a nice pot of money, and then the pros that come in shit all over you because they appreciate nothing. So if you want to get into the governing bodies and you want to get into some of the promoters, you also have to look at, okay, you provide an infrastructure, right? You go out of your way, you spend time and energy to build a prize purse, only to be just squatted on and acted as if you don't do enough for them. They show no level of appreciation, stab you in the back, walk all over you. I could give you literally, I could go to my spreadsheet right now. I could show you over, because we keep track of this, for charitable, for, I want to make sure we don't get PC here, but I've always believed, just like at the church, right? I give a certain percentage of my money that we make per year, we earmark it and we give it back. Every year we have evaluated what did those people do for the sport, not for us. This is exactly in line with what you're saying. We looked at what we gave and we looked at what they did with what we gave them, and they did nothing but take it and leave and then say you didn't give them enough. And that's the problem that we have in our sport right now. It's a big problem in our sport. Privateers complain they make no money, and then when people want to help them, they can't even give you some level of acknowledgement on a social media platform. And it's not like we're asking for much, right? Tag us here. be a little bit creative on how you can announce that we try to partner with you, and that's asking for too much. But let me buy you 3 bikes, and that's okay. I need to buy you at least 3 bikes, and I can't get a sponsorship logo, and if I ask you, "Where's the logo, and what have you done to try to promote my brand?" I don't need a yada boy. We agreed I was gonna buy you 3 bikes. You agreed the logo placement would be here. You agreed that you would soft sell it, and I have to now be the bad guy because I'm like, "I came through on my 3 bikes, and all you tell me is I didn't give you enough, and that you forgot to post it, and you forgot to get your jersey screened the right way." So it goes full circle. I mean, we need to be honest with that, Ian.
So I'm glad you brought this up because this is what happened to me previously. Like it was like hands down, and there's still some people out there, and I'm not gonna. They know
We
who they
don't
are. They
Yeah,
got to look
exactly.
themselves in the mirror, right?
Exactly, yep.
But I kid you not, every single person that came to the USA Championships where we did this was super grateful and was above and beyond anything I would have expected them to do. And they will take my call and help me with anything I need. Um, so I found a way to curate this. We'll have to talk about this, and this maybe it. Maybe we'll have to do a 5th episode or something, and people want to hear about it because there are more questions in here, and I don't know. We're over time. Do you have time to go over this stuff?
Yeah, I can go another 10 minutes if you've got, and then if we can sit on the questions, because I wanna make sure we don't, like you said at the beginning, I wanna get to everybody's question, even if we have to do an episode 5, that we owe them that respect. And thank you
Okay.
for the questions. Hopefully, people are getting more comfortable, or maybe
Yeah.
our conversation's invoking more questions, which is perfect. That's what we're here for.
Yeah. Usually, and then one question branches off into so many conversations, and
They're good.
I do want to ride tonight, but I can ride in the morning. Like if I don't ride tonight, it's fine.
Yeah,
I like.
I'm good for about another 10 minutes.
Okay.
Yeah,
So interesting enough, this guy, Mike and Heidi. So I don't know who's on here. I'm going to show this in just a moment, but they commented right after Alex asked about people driving a longer distance, and we were talking about that, and they are actually driving 2 hours right now to Cycle Ranch.
nice.
Um, so they're now new to riding dirt bikes, and um, they have a 7-year-old daughter and the eldest son on a KTM 125. You can probably see it on the screen here. But their question is at the end here, um, besides being safe and going fast and having fun, how should they prep for their first AMA race in beginner class?
This will go back to what we said earlier, and we say it with all of our athletes, regardless of capability. You're not going to gain any fitness the week of a race. So what we want to avoid is you going out and trying to squeeze one more ride session in, or go get one more speed set in, or go squeeze another workout in the gym. Allow your son or daughter to come to the race like the week of the race is what we call a race taper. You want them to come in as fresh as possible. Go work on a turning track for 30 minutes on Tuesday. Go work on the turning track again on Tuesday and Thursday, and then just kind of relax the other days and just get excited about your first race, and then show up fed, rested, and hydrated. And that is the safest athlete that will ever pull up to the starting gate. So, and by the way, Ian has my contact information. If you, as parents, especially with 2 young beginners like this, if you want, and I'll offer it up to everybody who's in here tonight. If you want some suggested meal plans, we have 4 books on Amazon. We have a couple cookbooks. We have a snack book. We have a smoothie book. Um, happy to send some ideas and some suggestions, because people will hear, yeah, you need to show up fed, and they're like, oh, what do I eat? You may like smoothies, you may like sandwiches, but yeah, like you said. And by the way, props to you as parents. I love that you keep putting the fun factor in there. We're not all of a sudden thinking we have the next, jet out there on the track. I love it. Just enjoy the process and the journey, and more importantly, thanks for coming to Cycle Ranch. We look forward to seeing you tonight. It's gonna be awesome.
Awesome, awesome. And I just dropped a link to Complete Racing Solutions on there. So if you want to reach out to Robin, also he'll be tagged and all this. So I don't know if we're using StreamYard, so I don't know if it actually tags him in on here.
Okay.
Um, so, but it's Coach Robb, right? Coach Robb on Instagram. At
Oh, no,
Coach Robb.
sorry. On Instagram, it's at Complete Racing Solutions would be on Instagram. And I'm not going to lie to you, with social media, between leaving comments on YouTube, having 11 different email addresses, the best way to communicate. My point is I'm not very big on DMs. It's hard to catch up with them and keep up with them. Uh, if you're in a position where you can write it down, the best way to get in touch with me is to hit my assistant up, Jennifer, and you could do that at contact@coachrob, and it's with 2b's.com. So just contact@coachrob.com. Just let in the body of the email, just say, hey, I was joined you and Ian. At least I can get the context of what you've heard this evening. And I'll make sure I get any resource that we have to you immediately. It's very important. We have a plethora of resources, heart rate spreadsheets, heart rate testing, nutritional protocols, all kinds of stuff. And that applies again to this new family. Awesome. Love to have you in the sport, all the way up to those that are vet riders and everywhere in between. Reach out to us. How can we help? That's what we're here for. This Cycle Ranch community is not a bro network with an agenda. It's a bro network on what do you need? What can I get? What can I get for you? That's why we love doing this. There's so much misinformation on the internet. What's something that you've heard that you tried to apply, didn't work, and now you're more confused than ever? That's why we're here. Let's answer it. Let's get through the garbage. Let's get past the agendas, and as the old saying goes, follow the money. I have nothing to sell you guys. I really don't. I just want to see people riding dirt bikes. It's my favorite thing in the world to do. I want more.
Awesome. Awesome. And I want to just mention to Mike, like this last week, we had somebody out here for spring break and they were only supposed to be here for 2-3 days. And I did some training with their son. And they ended up staying the whole weekend and racing with us. So, and Rob, so, we don't have a race this weekend. So if they're coming, they're not trying to race this weekend.
Gotcha.
But what happened was we just started off working on body position. This was a beginner rider, 10 years old, and he was on a 60, and he also had his 85 with him. And we ended up getting him to the 85, but like he could barely navigate the night track when he first got here. And we really focused on those fundamentals and just making sure that he got more comfortable and aware of where he was on the bike, so that when things went wrong, he wasn't out of shape already. Right. And that's a huge piece of being safe, right? If we can get comfortable and we can be in the right place on the bike, we don't get out of shape. So making sure those fundamentals are done, like when I say done, like they got them, like it's a line, is key. So I'll be here this weekend. I'll be on 916. Pull me aside. I can help if you'd like. But getting the basic fundamentals on the bike right is key. Making sure you're not making changes to the bike too. So you know your tire pressure, you know your suspension setting, you know those. And I know they're just a beginner, so they might not even be thinking about this, especially at 7 years old, right? So asking probing questions of like, not just how do you feel out there, but like when you hit bumps, does it bounce up and down or does it bounce left and right? And if they say, actually, it's going smooth straight through everything and not bouncing at all, you've just asked them kind of a trick question, right? You're not even giving them that option. And then they're good. But if they're like, we're bouncing up and down, that's one thing. If they bounce side to side, it's another thing, right? So it can kind of point you in the direction. So I don't know how much experience you have, Mike, in riding, but getting the fundamentals down is key so that they can progress without having injury. It's not about just trying to go faster, right? So that's one of the things you mentioned there is going fast. The speed will come, because what happened with this 10-year-old was he's barely doing everything during the week, and every day we got him over another hurdle, and by the end of the week he was jumping and clearing everything smoothly. And then we got to the race, and what happened? He stalled going over the gate. He stalled going over the gate. We didn't even touch starts. We didn't even touch starts. We were so focused on just making sure he was comfortable and clear. Literally pops the clutch, bro. right? But he caught up to the person in first. He didn't pass them because we didn't work on passing either. And at 10, getting them to take alternate lines and stuff like that, they just want to ride how they want to ride a lot of times. So like mentally, it depends on when your kid's at, if they're willing to get out of that comfort zone. But we went over to the side and we worked on starts a little bit. And by the fourth moto, the last moto of the day, they got out of the gate clean, and he won his moto, which gave him overall.
That's awesome.
So definitely working on the fundamentals, but also like don't lose sight of things like getting over the gate and making sure you can get to the first corner clean, how to pick the gate, how to pack the gate, how to prep the gate. We did all that, but we didn't actually launch out because he was exhausted on Friday night when the race was Saturday. So really that's the key, is making sure the fundamentals are there. And don't, like Rob said, don't change anything. Don't expect more on race day than you have in practice day, even though some of us, like me, when it comes to racing, like I drop 3 to 5 seconds a lap just because the gate's there and at the competition. And then also what you're feeding them. So just, these are kids, no artificial sweeteners, no artificial dyes. Eat real food. If it didn't grow, don't eat it. If it's in a box, probably not, unless it's like the handle, right? Like if you use like bread as the handle for the sandwich, just make sure what's inside that sandwich is real food, right? And bread these days, there's not much nutritional value to it, right? So, but they might not eat sprouted bread, but don't get the Wonder White bread, right? Like just do the best what you can. Don't do the Coca-Cola. Don't do the root beer. Like maybe afterwards as a reward, because we need the calories and whatever, you can get away with it. And ice cream for dinner. We talked about that a lot last time.
Yep.
But for the race, make sure they're eating like clean food. When we have races here, we serve egg sandwiches, and we have smoothies, and we have juices, and we have salads, and we have burgers. And even our chips are pretty freaking clean. So just pay attention to what they're consuming, because they can only output based on what they've consumed.
Amen.
As well. And when it comes to these artificial things, they mess you up. They mess you up. Like, it's very obvious when you eliminate it from your diet and then also you take one, you see what happens. My son is like a light switch. I don't even know my son. When he, like, it's a totally different person when he gets the artificial sweeteners and stuff, or the coloring, like, and it messes up not only their attention, but it actually messes up their organs. So that's where I'm going to leave it at.
That's a good one.
So we got Mike Marquez asking, do you have time for one more, or we
yeah, go for it.
Nice.
Yeah, go for it. Yep.
Okay. So Mike Marquez just popped in, and this has been getting rehabilitated from injuries while riding dirt bikes, broken ribs, scapula, clavicle, collapsed lung. I've had all these.
Yeah, this is a great question, and it's something that even if you've never been injured, I hope you'll take this advice and be proactive and get it lined up. And that would be finding a good physiotherapist that's in your area, somebody that understands you. Because if we go to Mike's question, unfortunately, when you report yourself to that physio and you're already injured, they've got a benchmark. They go, okay, your shoulder has X amount of mobility. Well, now they've got a benchmark and they do some therapy on it. Now, next thing you know, you've got 5 degrees more. Well, there's a progression from baseline to where you left. But that physio knows exactly what progression you've made because of what they've done. I know that sounds a little elementary, but if every time you go and you've got a different physio, they've got to start at a baseline that they have nothing to compare it against. Yeah, they might have some soap notes. So the best, and physicians are phenomenal. Thank goodness they can bolt us back together, especially with the sport that we love. But the idea is the person that will help you make the greatest amount of progress is always going to be a physio, a chiropractor, and a massage therapist. Because what they're going to do, with the exception of your partner, nobody's going to know your body more intimately than those physios. Why? Because they've got their fingers deep in those shoulder joints, into that pec muscle, into your lats, whatever's been damaged. So in this case, when you are going through an injury, I can't emphasize it enough. And I know a lot of times it comes down to a cost situation. If you're injured and your insurance says you can have 10 physical therapy sessions, use every single one of those sessions, because you want to build a rapport. And I would even encourage you, try to get the physio's cell phone number, because then you could be at the track and something goes wrong. They might see you on a Saturday. I've seen that happen many times. When you look at the idea that if you haven't gotten injured and maybe you take a stinger to the ground and the next couple of days your shoulders are jammed up, you've already got a relationship built. You can call them up and say, "Hey, can I spot you $50? Can you at least tell me if I've got a stabilization issue? Do I have really something structurally?" Because you got to remember, physios are seeing it all day long. They're going to be able to ascertain the magnitude of your injury, probably 75% accurate, without even an MRI or an X-ray, because they're going to move it. They're going to go off your pain and they're going to go, "Oh yeah, we need to get a picture of this." Or, "No, you've got good stability in there. Just let it rest." See how quickly they can become your best friend. Physicians are great, but nobody will replace a physio. They really are the most important asset. And I think that can help you with everything that you've been through. Broken ribs are brutal because all you can do is let them rest. There's nothing they can do to help you with that, unfortunately. It's like a coccyx bone, your sit bone. They can't cast your behind. I mean, I guess they can if you want to, but it makes other problems. But yeah, broken ribs and coccyx bones are very difficult, because the only thing that you can do is just let them rest and hopefully not cough or sneeze or laugh.
Yeah, no joke telling in the house. Um,
Yeah.
so, Mike, I've had all of these, and I will second what Rob said. I don't know if you're local. I'm going to drop a link here. This is who I go to. His name is Dr. Peyton Newman. He has Altius Performance Medicine, and he's similar to Rob in using cutting edge um, technologies to really help people come back from injury. I would say yoga, Pilates, like a lot of full body stuff, um, decompression breathing. And these are all things you don't need um, to spend a lot of money on. You can watch a YouTube video and do yoga or Pilates. The decompression breathing, you can do it while you're driving when you're in the line, and it actually strengthens all the small muscles around these things and kind of sets the body back straight, right? So you want to have that straight spine. If you don't have a straight spine and a strong core, you're really going to have difficulty moving any other part of your body. So my experience personally, and this is anecdotal because I'm not a doctor, is making sure I do the things that exercise the small muscles and making sure that my posture is right. And then all of a sudden, those other parts of my body will work more effectively. Now, broken collarbone, right, clavicle, ribs, like ribs are annoying because you can't do anything, but they kind of just go back to where they are. But if you're not doing like a decompression breathing, which actually expands your rib cage, strengthens all the muscles, pulls everything kind of apart, so that it actually your whole rib cage opens up and you can get a deeper breath than ever before. Um, that collapsed lung and the time that you sat doing nothing, it can take a long time to get clear and get back to where you were, or you might never get there. Um, so the decompression breathing actually got me beyond where I was prior. And then on the clavicle side, I mean, big thing with the physio is the range of motion and the strength that comes with all that. I think some of what Rob was alluded to there by working with somebody that's a physio therapist. So definitely you want to be doing what Rob said, but from personal experience and from personal experience, those three things, and even deep tissue massage, um, really good. If you had the collapsed lung, they probably gave you that toy that you had to suck in and like maintain a certain amount of breath at a certain number of, I think it was like milliliters per second, and do it for 30 seconds. Well, instead of doing the 1,000 that they tell you to do, try to get it to 2,000 and keep it for twice as long as they tell you. Like, make it a game for yourself, and you might actually end up stronger than ever before. Because a lot of times when we have injuries, when we treat them effectively, and really it puts our attention on this thing that we hurt, we can be better than we ever were prior, because now we're actually focusing on it. So the injury actually becomes a gift.
Hmm. And also remember, if you don't recover completely from your first injury, it usually results in a second injury, which tends to be worse. So I know it sounds a little fatalistic, but most of the second injuries are a result of not recovering completely from the first one. And now instead of being out for 6 weeks, you're out for 6 months. That's the hard one, especially with our sport. And yeah, good stuff all the way around. It's been
Yeah,
good,
don't
man.
shortcut what the physio tells you, because I know I've done that, and then all of a sudden I didn't have the range of motion in my wrist, for example, and then it gave me more arm pump and pain in my elbows and then pain in my shoulder. Or if you hurt your shoulder and you don't get that right, then all of a sudden you're going to start walking crooked, and then it's now your back's twisted, you have scoliosis, and then you have a herniated disc, and then you have sciatica and all that stuff. They compound. So don't shortcut. Like,
Yeah,
do 100% what they tell you. You'll heal. These machines that we got, our consciousness get put in, amazing
yeah,
what they can do. So
100%.
everybody, reach out to Rob. Rob, thank you so much for being here
Absolutely.
and going over and everything. And
Huge
thank you,
thanks to the
everybody.
community. Yeah, huge thanks to the community. Thanks for having me. Thanks, Ian.
Have a great night, everybody. God
Take
bless.
care.